They say a mother's love can survive anything, but what happens when her own son teaches her what loneliness truly means? My name is Margaret, and this is my story. A story not about losing someone to death, but about losing them while they're still alive. My son's name is Lucas. He used to be my reason to wake up every morning. I raised him alone after my husband passed away when Lucas was only 6. Life wasn't kind, but I tried to be. I worked at a small bookstore by day and cleaned offices by night, just to make sure my boy never went to bed hungry. Lucas was my everything. I used to save every extra dollar to buy him little surprises, books, toys, a warm sweater in winter. And every time I handed him something, his little eyes would light up and he'd hug me, whispering, "You're the best mom in the world." Those were the words that carried me through life. He was smart, kind, and always had a smile that made people love him. When he grew older, he became the kind of man I always hoped he'd be, hardworking, humble, full of dreams. And then one day, he met Hannah. She was lovely, graceful, polite, and full of confidence. The first time I met her, I genuinely liked her. I could see why my son loved her. She seemed perfect. When Lucas told me he wanted to marry her, I smiled, even though something in my heart whispered that things were about to change. On his wedding day, I watched him walk down the aisle, looking happier than ever. I cried tears of joy, not sadness. I thought, my boy has grown into a man. My job is done. After the wedding, they moved to another part of the city. I told myself it was natural, he needed space, a new start. But as days passed, the calls became fewer. The texts shorter. The visits, none at all. At first, I blamed work. He had a demanding job, he must be busy. But mothers, we feel what the world doesn't show. I could feel the distance growing. I used to wait by the phone every Sunday. I'd make tea, sit by the window, and stare at the clock, hoping I'd hear his voice again. "Hey Mom, how are you?" The words that once made my whole week. But they stopped coming. Then one morning, I saw a photo online, Lucas and Hannah on a beach, laughing, holding hands. The caption read, "Finally, some peace away from all the chaos." I smiled, but my hands trembled. Because I realized, the chaos he was talking about, was me. Still, I couldn't stop loving him. So one day, I baked his favorite banana bread, the one he always asked for when he was a child. I decided to visit. It had been almost a year since I last saw him. When I reached their house, my heart was pounding. The house was beautiful, everything I'd dreamed for him. I knocked, and Hannah opened the door. Her smile faded for a second when she saw me. "Oh, Margaret, hi," she said, her tone polite but distant. "Lucas isn't home right now. He's at a meeting." I held up the banana bread and said softly, "That's all right, dear. I just thought I still remember the night it truly hit me, the night I realized my son no longer saw me as his home. It was raining hard. I was sitting by the window, watching raindrops slide down the glass, listening to the distant thunder that echoed through the city. I had made soup, just the way Lucas liked it, thick, warm, with pieces of chicken and herbs that filled the room with that familiar comfort. It was my way of feeling close to him even when he wasn't there. Out of habit, I picked up my phone and stared at his number. I wanted to call him, just to ask, "Are you okay?" But I didn't. I was afraid he might sound irritated or too busy to talk. I didn't want to be that kind of mother, the one who becomes a burden. So, I put the phone down, and quietly said to myself, "He'll call when he's free." He never did. Weeks turned into months. Then, one afternoon, I received a text message from him. It said, "Hey Mom, hope you're doing okay. Things have been crazy busy. I'll visit soon." I smiled when I saw his name. Just a simple text, and yet it felt like sunlight after a long winter. I waited for that visit. I cleaned the apartment, bought his favorite snacks, even placed fresh flowers on the table. Every knock on the door made my heart skip. But he didn't come. Instead, I saw photos online again, Lucas and Hannah at a dinner party, smiling, surrounded by friends. He looked happy. So why did I feel so empty? The next time I tried calling him, he didn't pick up. I left a voicemail, trying to sound cheerful. "Hey sweetheart, just wanted to check in. I made that soup you love. It's getting cold outside, stay warm, okay?" He never called back. Days later, I saw his message, short, almost formal, "Thanks, Mom. Been swamped lately. We'll call soon." He didn't. And so, my days began to melt into one another. Morning tea, quiet house, empty chair across the table. The same silence, the same ache. Sometimes, I'd sit in the small garden outside my apartment and talk to the flowers, as if they were listening. "Do you think he misses me?" I'd whisper. The wind would blow gently, almost like a reply. But I knew it was just my heart trying to comfort itself. One day, I ran into one of Lucas's old friends at the grocery store, Evelyn, a sweet girl who used to come over for dinner when they were teenagers. She smiled when she saw me and said, "Oh, Mrs. Clark. It's been so long. How's Lucas?" I hesitated, forcing a smile. "He's doing well, I think. Busy with work and life." She nodded, then said softly, "I saw him last week. He looked good. Hannah was with him. They seem different." Different. That word stung. When I got home, I sat on the couch and stared at the family photo on the wall, the one from his college graduation. My arm was around him, his smile bright, his eyes full of love. I touched the glass gently and whispered, "Where did you go, my boy?" The truth is, when your child starts drifting away, it doesn't happen all at once. It happens too. I think it was around winter when I realized I had started counting days differently, not by dates on the calendar, but by the last time my son had called. It had been 4 months. 4 long, quiet months. Every morning, I'd wake up, make myself a cup of coffee, and stare at the phone on the kitchen counter, hoping it would ring. But it never did. I tried to fill my days reading, tending to my plants, visiting the church on Sundays, but no matter what I did, every little thing reminded me of Lucas. One evening, I got an unexpected call from a neighbor, Mrs. Evans. "Margaret, dear, I just saw Lucas and Hannah at the mall," she said cheerfully. "They looked wonderful together. You must be so proud." I smiled politely. "Yes, of course," I said. "I am." But when I hung up, the silence of the house felt heavier than before. The next morning, I decided to bake cookies, his favorite. I hadn't baked them in years. As the smell filled the kitchen, a flood of memories came rushing back, a little boy standing on a chair beside me, his face covered in flour, laughing as he tried to shape the dough into stars. I had told him back then, "One day, you'll make these for your children." He had grinned and said, "Only if you're there to help me, Mom." Now that promise echoed like an old song I could no longer sing. That night, I finally gathered the courage to call him. My hands trembled slightly as I pressed his number. After 2 rings, he picked up. "Hey Mom," he said, his voice tired but calm. "Lucas," I said softly, "I just wanted to hear your voice. It's been a while." "Yeah," he replied. "Sorry, things have been hectic." I smiled faintly, even though he couldn't see it. "That's okay, dear. I made your favorite cookies today." There was a brief pause, then a hesitant laugh. "That's sweet, Mom. I wish I could have some, but Hannah's cutting down on sugar lately, so we're trying to eat clean." I felt my heart sink a little, but I tried not to let it show. "That's good, honey. I'm glad she's keeping you healthy." We talked for a few more minutes, or rather, I asked questions, and he gave short answers. I told him how proud I was, how I missed him, how quiet the house felt. Then, before I could say anything else, he said, "I'll call again soon, Mom. Love you." And just like that, he was gone again. The next week, I wrapped a small box of cookies and mailed them to him anyway. I wrote a note, "For you and Hannah. From Mom, with love." He never mentioned receiving them. Weeks later, I visited the post office to send a few Christmas cards, and the lady at the counter looked at me with pity. "Ma'am," she said softly, "one of your packages was returned. It says the recipient moved." I stared at the box in her hands, my cookies, untouched. My handwriting on the label. Moved? I took the box home. The cookies were stale, but I couldn't bring myself to throw them away. I just placed the box on the kitchen shelf, beside the photo of Lucas's first. It was spring again, the season when everything around me came back to life, except the part of my heart that still waited. The flowers in my garden bloomed like they always did, bright and full of color, yet to me, everything still looked a little faded. I had begun to live in a rhythm of quiet acceptance. Every day started with a prayer for Lucas, a cup of tea, and a long silence that echoed through the small apartment. People often said time heals all wounds, but they never tell you that some wounds don't want to heal, they just learn how to hide better. One afternoon, as I was dusting the shelves, my eyes fell on the old family album. I sat down on the couch and opened it carefully. There he was, my little boy with his crooked smile, missing front teeth, and those mischievous eyes that always shone with life. I touched the photo gently and whispered, "You promised you'd never forget me, remember?" But promises made in childhood are fragile things, they fade with years, replaced by newer priorities, newer loves. That evening, I got a call, but not from Lucas. It was from Hannah again. Her voice sounded a bit hesitant. "Mrs. Clark, I wanted to tell you something," she began softly. "Lucas and I were expecting a baby." For a moment, I couldn't speak. My heart trembled, not with sadness this time, but with something warm, something I hadn't felt in a long time. "Oh, Hannah," I said, my voice breaking slightly, "that's wonderful news. Congratulations, sweetheart." She smiled through the phone, "Thank you. We're both really excited. I'll make sure Lucas calls you soon, okay?" I nodded, tears filling my eyes. "Please do. Tell him his mother's heart just grew a little bigger today." After the call, I sat there, crying softly, not from pain, but from joy mixed with longing. My baby was going to be a father. The little boy who once held my hand while crossing the street was now going to hold his own child. For the next few weeks, I started knitting small clothes, soft blue and white sweaters, tiny socks, and a blanket with little stars on it. Each stitch carried a prayer, a memory, a hope. I imagined visiting them, holding that baby in my arms, whispering lullabies like I once did for Lucas. Maybe this baby would bring us closer again. Maybe I'd finally hear him say, "Mom, I missed you." But fate, it seems, had other plans. Months passed, and though Hannah sent short updates, baby shower next week, nursery coming together, Lucas never called. I kept waiting. I told myself, he's busy. He'll call when the baby's born. Then one morning, I received a text. It wasn't from Lucas or Hannah, it was from an unknown number. It read, "Baby girl arrived last night. Both mother and child doing well." That was it. No name, no signature. Just a line. I stared at the message for a long time, and then I whispered to myself, "I'm a grandmother." I placed the phone down and cried, not loudly, just softly, like a quiet rain that nobody in. A year had passed since Lily was born. Time moved on as it always does, quietly, steadily, uncaring of those it leaves behind. For me, the days had grown slower, softer, and lonelier. Every morning, I would water the lilies in my garden, whispering, "Grow well, little one," as if those flowers were somehow connected to my granddaughter. They were all I had to hold on to, a silent reflection of the love I could not give in person. Lucas had called twice that entire year. Twice. Each time, it was short, polite, almost rehearsed. "Hey Mom, we're doing fine. Lily's growing fast. We'll visit soon. Soon." That word had become a cruel comfort. It promised warmth and gave me frost. But I didn't complain. Mothers don't. We find happiness in crumbs when love becomes distant. One Sunday, after church, Father Thomas approached me with a smile. "Margaret," he said, "you haven't brought your family in a while. How's your son?" I smiled faintly. "He's busy. But he's happy. That's what matters." Father Thomas nodded, but I could see the concern in his eyes. He gently said, "Don't forget, even the strongest hearts need company sometimes." That night, I looked at the empty chair across the dinner table and whispered, "My heart isn't strong anymore, Father. It's just surviving." Then one afternoon, the unexpected happened, a letter. It was sitting in my mailbox, neatly folded, with Lucas's handwriting on the envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. "Dear Mom, I know I haven't been around much, and I'm sorry. Life's been moving fast, work, the baby, everything. I guess I didn't realize how much time had passed. Hannah's been reminding me that I need to call you more often. She says you must be lonely. I hope you're doing okay. Lily started walking last week, she's unstoppable. You'd love her, Mom. She's got your eyes. We're thinking of visiting sometime soon. I'll let you know once I get a few days off. Love, Lucas." I read that letter over and over. Each word felt like sunlight breaking through a long winter. He remembered. He wrote. He called me Mom. For the first time in months, I laughed through tears. I placed the letter near the vase of lilies and said, "He'll come home. I know he will." Days turned into weeks. Then one morning, my phone rang. It was him. "Mom," he said, sounding lighter than before, "we're coming over this weekend." I froze. "You are?" "Yeah. Hannah and Lily are excited to see you." I pressed my hand to my chest, tears spilling before I could stop them. "Oh, sweetheart, I can't wait." The next few days were a blur of excitement. I cleaned every corner of the house, cooked his favorite dishes, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, chocolate pie. I even set up a small swing in the garden for Lily. Saturday morning arrived. I waited by the window, dressed in my best cardigan, hands trembling slightly with anticipation. Hours passed. Every sound outside made me jump. Then finally, a car pulled up. I rushed to the door before. The morning after their visit, I woke up with a smile I hadn't felt in years. The echoes of laughter still danced around the walls, and for the first time, my home felt alive again. I brewed a cup of tea and sat near the window, watching the sun gently rise over the garden. The lilies looked brighter that morning, their petals glistening as though they too had been waiting for that one day of reunion. I thought about Lucas, about the little boy who once refused to sleep without hearing a bedtime story, and the man he had become, caring, mature, and yet still my son. My phone buzzed. It was a picture message from Hannah. It was Lily, in the car seat, clutching the little stuffed bunny I'd given her. Beneath the photo, a message read, "She won't let it go. Thank you, Mom." Those words, "Thank you, Mom," filled my eyes with tears again. For so long, I had craved that simple acknowledgement. And now, it came, softly, lovingly, like a promise. Over the next few months, something beautiful happened. Lucas started calling regularly. Sometimes it was just a "Hi Mom, how are you?" and sometimes he'd talk for an hour about work, about Lily's milestones, about how Hannah had started baking. I'd listen, smile, and offer small pieces of advice, just as I always had. But most importantly, they visited often. Once a month, they'd drive down for the weekend. The house that had once felt like a silent monument now echoed with laughter, tiny footsteps, and the warmth of family. One afternoon, while Hannah helped me bake cookies, she looked up and said softly, "You know, Mom, I used to think Lucas exaggerated when he talked about your strength. But now, I see it. You raised him to be kind, even when he forgot to show it. I smiled faintly. We all forget sometimes, dear. Love isn't about never drifting apart, it's about finding your way back. She reached out and squeezed my hand. You're the heart of this family, you know that? That night, Lucas tucked Lily into bed and came to sit with me on the porch. The moon was full, painting the world in silver. He said, Mom, I've been thinking a lot lately about everything you did for me. You gave up your dreams so I could chase mine. I chuckled softly. Every mother does that, Lucas. But not every mother forgives so easily, he said. I hurt you. I pushed you away. And yet, you never stopped waiting for me. I looked at him, my heart full. That's what mothers do. We wait, not because we're weak, but because love teaches patience better than time ever could. He nodded slowly, his eyes wet. Then he whispered, I love you, Mom. It had been years since I'd heard those words. I smiled and placed my hand on his cheek. I know, sweetheart. I never stopped loving you either. Silence filled the air, but it wasn't empty. It was peaceful, sacred, the kind of silence that only forgiveness can create. As the night deepened, Lucas stood to leave. He hugged me one last time and said, Promise me you'll